After a very exciting international break and some big injuries, it's finally time to look at my Game Week 12 team selection and an updated wildcard draft. Hello everyone, welcome back to another video on this channel. Today will be my Game Week 12 team selection, and along with that I have a wildcard at the end of the video. It will be a live section and I'll run you through my chip strategy for the remainder of the season and some players that I do have my eye on after this big international break. Let's get straight into it. So as usual lads, do hit the like button and subscribe. We're on the way to 10k subscribers, and also the like goal of this video will be 300 likes. Let's get straight into my team and let's do a little recap before we get into it. So I'm currently 328k in the world after a nice big healthy green arrow in game week 11 that brought me from 450k I believe up 125k places to 325k. So let me quickly run through the team position by position. On goal, we've got Nick Pope. A three at the back in Anderson, Richards, and Jurrien Timber. On the bench, we have Dubravka, Rodon, Mukiele, and Mark Guy. So as you can see, the biggest talking point of this particular international break is, of course, Gabriel. Now, fortunately enough for myself, again, Gabriel is projected to be out for at least 1 month minimum. And Arsenal's fixture congestion is quite tough over that period. So I imagine many managers will be selling him. So before we get on to Gabriel and what I would do if I own him, let me quickly talk through my own selection. So with Nick Pope on goal with City at home, to be honest, I don't think it is worth me making a goalkeeper transfer move this current game week. Again, City at home is a fixture. Even at St. James's Park, I still probably expect Newcastle to concede. But I imagine they will do everything to try keep City out. And they've been a decent defence this season thus far, even though they've conceded the odd few goals. Now, with Nick Pope on goal, we know he provides lots of saves. And you'd imagine it'd be the same with City at home if he can keep Erling Haaland out. My thought process is if he is going to keep Erling Haaland out and they do keep a clean sheet, it's going to be a haul. And with 3 free transfers in the bank and 1.3 million, it is just not an area that I will be looking to make a move this current game week. And we'll talk about some of my moves in just a second. Pairing him just in front is Chris Richards. Now, Chris Richards has been one of the best assets this season, in my opinion. Again, I always speak about value in terms of defenders, and I do not know how this man has not got a price rise. At 4.5 million, he's started every single game for Crystal Palace this season, even with the injury scare so far. And he plays Wolves away, which is a great fixture, of course, for Crystal Palace. Now, picking up a clean sheet versus Brighton, which I myself did not expect, and picking up DEFCON, which he's done so many times so far this season. Again, if you look at his counterparts in his own team, you have the likes of Daniel Munoz, who I do think is one of the best options in the game with the attacking threat he provides. You also have Lacroix, who I think at that 5 million bracket is good value also, and is probably going to pick up more DEFCON as the season goes on than Richards. But again, considering the 0.5 bracket, price range bracket that Richards does have over Lacroix, I prefer having Chris Richards and getting a piece of this Crystal Palace defence. Also looking at Mark Gay, if you have him, there is a slight injury dealt with Gahey. So definitely happy as a Chris Richards owner. What I would say is now we get into this period where Crystal Palace have the hardest or most fixture congestion in the league, and we're going to start to see 2 or 3 day turnarounds for them. So I would imagine down the line when the fixtures do get more congested, he will miss a game or two. Now, not to scaremonger, but as of now, I'm quite happy. And I feel like the international break would have done Richards a world of good with the amount of minutes he's played. Beside him, another player who didn't get minutes on international duty, which was Joachim Andersen. But no doubts in my mind with his recent injury. I imagine that they're trying to wrap him in cotton wool for the time being. And a very nice fixture. And this is a debate we need to talk about now on whether or not Sunderland at home is a good fixture anymore. But in terms of DEFCON, I feel like it is definitely a decent fixture. And Fulham as a defence in general are always solid enough to the point where I'm more than happy to keep, again, another player at 4.5 million, which I don't know how he's not got a price rise. But with consistent DEFCON and a decent fixture and good fixtures overall for Fulham to come, more than happy to hold on to Anderson. And then lastly, we've got Jurrien Timber. And this is the part where we can start talking about Gabriel replacements. There are 2 Gabriel replacements in my mind. I feel like you have two options. So you can either go with the likes of a Jerry and Timber if you do not already own him. You can go to a Virgil van Dijk, which would be my preference at 5.9 million. Again, that saves you what 0.8 million, depends on your team value on Gabriel, of course. But for me, with DEFCON and the fixtures Virgil van Dijk has, to be honest, I would have almost preferred Van Dijk in this position. Now I know it is controversial to say, but with the fixtures that they have to come, and the fact that Van Dijk is more likely to get DEFCON over Gabriel in those fixtures anyway, and the attacking threat Virgil also provides, I feel like it is definitely a good move. And maybe it might just fall into place for you where it might be a better move, even if Gabriel was fit. The other option is just going to Jurriën Timber, who's looked amazing this season. What I would say on Timber is I expect Timber to miss out on one of these games. And when I look at the fixtures, it's probably going to be that Brentford game with the Champions League games they have to come. So, again, not to scaremonger. Again, I'm more than happy to hold on to him for the Tottenham game against my own team, of course, but he's just not worth getting rid of in this current point of time, and comes in at great value for me. So again, the other option with Gabriel, if I did own him, would be to bring him down to the likes of a Trafford, again at that 4.5 million bracket, and open up 2.5 million to use that elsewhere. And I feel like that can go a long way with the fixture turn that we have for the likes of Liverpool. So let's get into my midfield, and we'll talk about some Liverpool midfielders in just a second. So getting into the midfield with Eze, Sarr, Anderson, Mo Salah, and Enzo. Mo Salah with the armband. And 3 free transfers to work around with, lads. Again, I have a decision to make on how I want to play this period of the season. Just on my chip strategy, I have just the bench boost remaining. And in game week 8 wildcard, I had decided that I wanted to commit to using the 5 free transfers in game week 16 to opt for a bench boost when I inevitably sell Mo Salah. And I do really like this strategy because I see a lot of people saying that they're really happy to have the bench boost to use. Now, again, I might be one of those managers saying I wish I used it come game week 16, but with 3 free transfers in the bank currently, and they must be used before game week, going into game week 15. So I get to 5 and 16. I'll be able to change my team around as I want. That's a lot of transfers to use by now and then. And from game week 16 to 19, I can plan on who I want to bring in with the large amount of funds that Mo Salah is going to provide for my team. And also, if you look at my team, there are a lot of players in place that I could always bench boost. You have the likes of Mark Gee on the bench, who's the only dead spot in my team. Of course, Dubravka, Rodon, and Mukiele, who we know will play week in, week out, providing they don't get injured. But with 3 free transfers in the bank and 1.3 million, I am looking to make a move this game week. And the player for me that I'll be looking to move on is Eze. Now, again, in this particular week, I don't think Eze is necessarily a must sell. Again, he scored a tap in on the international break with a phenomenal assist from Foden. So I think he's a player on form who's picking up more minutes for Arsenal. And with Martin Odegaard, it's just looming around, and Kai Havertz, I just always feel like with the fixture congestion Arsenal have, when these players come back, he's inevitably going to be at 65 minutes and not starting the odd game. So it's probably a decent week to do it, with Tottenham not being particularly a terrible defence. Again, not great. I do expect Arsenal to create a lot of chances in this game, and you'd like to think if Eze is going to start this game, it's going to come through him. Again, there will be a lot riding in this game, I imagine, for Eze, and I do think he'll start because what we see in the summer with his move almost coming to Tottenham and then going to Arsenal, it would just be Dr. Tottenham again if Eze did score against Tottenham. But for me, again, I'm not trying to play this with too much emotion, and maybe you might say it is with me getting rid of him, but my plan is to get rid of him, and the big question is for who? So, fortunately enough, it worked out in my favor last game week, where it has the exact amount of funds to do Eze to Bruno. Now, I really like this move, and it is maybe a bit passive in my mind. Again, 8.9 million for Bruno, which you might see more on the expensive side. Now, he is ticking away nicely, and for anyone who's been watching me consistently over seasons, would know I'm a big fan of Bruno. He's always going to come up with FPL points. And again, you've seen on international break with a hat-trick, you know what Bruno is about. And you just wonder if he can find these pockets of spaces that he's finding on international duty for United. Now, again, 2 of them were penalties, I believe, on the international break. But he can shine, and he is one of the best creators in the league. So one option is definitely Bruno Fernandes. There are 2 or 3 other options that I am playing around with. And again, it really depends on what I want to do with the other two free transfers. But the other one I am looking at is, of course, potentially bringing in Antoine Semenyo, who's currently sitting at that 8 million price bracket. Again, that does two things. It leaves funds in the bank for me to make another move if I want to do that. And also, Antoine Semenyo has amazing fixtures coming up. I just want to speak about this a small bit, how on Wildcard 8 I didn't go with Senesi or Semenyo, who were the picks of the century, it seemed, and we're going to score over 250 FPL points. But it's turned out in my favour this time around, and not going with Semenyo has looked good so far. Again, that's why I just knew with the fixtures he had coming that I could have went without him, and he was starting to get a bit expensive. I do think Semenyo is good value. He's a fair price, is what I would say. Is it so obvious? I'm not worried about him being injured either, by the way, with his 5-year anniversary with his missus. And also, he proposed. So I imagine he had spoken about that to some of his teammates. And that's why he was subbed again. Don't quote me on that. It's just my current feeling. So I could go to Semenyo. I just feel like, again, this is sideways for this particular game week with Eze. West Ham is a good fixture, of course. It's just, I don't know if I want to go down that route of going Bournemouth attack, who've looked good this season so far. Elsewhere, I could go to Embuemo, who is again 8.5 million, I believe now, which is also a nice move. But where my mind is currently sat is Mateus Cunha. Now, the reason being, again, there might be all pointers to just go with the likes of a Brian Embuemo, who we know has been on phenomenal form. But where I currently stand is in game week 4, I believe, I went Embuemo over Cunha because of I thought Embuemo will be the player to pick up more points over that period. And then, of course, Cunha unfortunately got that injury. So we didn't get to see Cunha in full flow. But now it's a different landscape. Embuemo is what, 0.6 more than Mateus Cunha, and Embuemo is heading off to AFCON in game week 16. Again, it really depends on if United can hold on to him for a longer period of time, which I'm unsure of. But Mateus Cunha, we know on his day, can be very, very influential for a team like United. And he's a workhorse. Again, Amron really, really likes him. Again, that's why he signed him. And I feel like at 7.9 million, going from an Eze, it just frees up a small bit more funds, which leaves me do another move, which I'll speak about in just a second. And I also really believe in Mateus Cunha as a player. I think he is quality, and I think a lot of United fans are also believing that he's a quality finisher. When he is playing, he's always great for the bonus because how influential he is to the game. He's a hard worker, always picking up moderate levels of DEFCON, I believe, averaging 8 or 9, which if he's going to get DEFCON in some of the harder games, it's always a good look. And also, I expect him to play 80 plus minutes after coming back to fitness now for United, with Benjamin Sesko also potentially being out for a longer period of time with his knee. So if Kuhn is expected to play up top, getting really good minutes for a United team with great fixtures, I feel like he can flourish in this team. Again, United have looked really good from a XG perspective and chance creations, whatever stat you want to look at. They've been good. So Kuna is currently top of the list. Then I'll put Bruno second. Again, 1 million in the difference for those players, and it's what it lets me do elsewhere. So with that money, I could potentially move a Mukiele to a Senesi and play 4 to back this game week. Now, I don't love that. That would mean benching Elliot Anderson, which we need to speak about now. Elliot Anderson, for me, what a transfer, by the way, last game. We got a bit of fortune him being on penalties with the two other penalty takers in Morgan Gibbs-White and the striker being subbed off. I just wonder, in my mind, with Morgan Gibbs-White not having the greatest of penalty records after missing a few, if the likes of Anderson can step up to the play and maybe you would start taking him for the foreseeable. I know it doesn't look like a great fixture with Liverpool away for Anderson this particular game week, but with it being a hard fixture, of course. And Anderson, great for DEFCON, and he'll be worked like a machine this game week. So if he can get me those 4 points at a minimum, happy days, and I'll take them all day. And anything extra, if it's a chance created, or the odd lucky goal, which I'm not going to write off with the form this man is on. Again, he is a phenomenal player and great on the eye. Why not start him instead of bringing in Senesi and rolling the other 2 free transfers? So Elliot Anderson, a good player to play this game week, even though his ceiling isn't the highest. I don't mind playing him at all, though. Next is Sarr, who didn't play any minutes over the international break, thankfully. Well, at least in that most recent game. I'm more than happy to hold on to Sarr. Again, he's not quite got the returns we probably expected from him owning him in the last few game weeks. But Wolves away again, not too much to say on this fixture, and he's always going to have big chances. I do not know how he did not return in this Brighton game last game week, but happy owning him going into game week 12 at Wolves away before he heads off to AFCON. Another man heading off to AFCON later down the line, and one of my biggest talking points this season so far is Mo Salah with Nottingham Forest at home, who will be my game week 12 captain. Now, looking ahead at this Nottingham Forest fixture, Nottingham Forest have looked much better, but I just feel like with the caliber of players that Liverpool have, of course, and not that they are finding form, because again they did lose to City, but beating the likes of Madrid and Villa, I feel like this international break would have done Liverpool well. Florian Wirtz, a player who looks on form over the international break. Ekitike also. And with me getting a piece of this Liverpool attack, I'd like to think Mo Salah is a guaranteed 90 minutes on penalties, of course. I'm happy owning Mo Salah going into this game week. And I'm more than happy to try put the armband on him to try pick up some variance where a lot of managers won't own him. What I would say is, going through this period where Liverpool's fixtures do turn, of course, I would personally be looking at a route into their attack. Now, you have the likes of Agakpo, Ekitike, Florian Wirtz, who are either not necessarily on form or not guaranteed the minutes, with the likes of Isaac looming around. What I would say is that's why I've gone with the Mo Salah route and taking a risk. I feel like Liverpool are inevitably going to score goals. If you're telling me they're going to score goals versus Nottingham Forest, maybe 2 or 3, I'd like to think Mo Salah's involved. So it's a risk I'm willing to take. And maybe you're right to say it's not justified at 14 million, but I like to think I pick up a lot of value in some of my assets in the likes of Anderson, Richards, and the other Anderson also. So that's my piece on Mo Salah. I'm more than happy to risk it this game week. Let's move on from him and talk about Enzo. Enzo, of course, didn't go to the international break. 2 weeks off for him, which is, of course, a good thing. He's been struggling with an injury for weeks now. I don't think we're going to get anything concrete on him before the deadline. What I would say is I'm happy to hold on to him, I think, for this particular game week with Burnley away, and then move him on next week where they have Arsenal. So I'm going to hold on to Enzo, I believe, this game week. There is one other move I could potentially make, which we'll talk about in the next section. Let's get straight in. So lastly, lads, before we get into the section, I do apologize if this video was a small bit longer. Maybe I'm just excited to talk FPL again since the international break, so I won't hold my team too much longer before we get into the wildcard draft. So up top, we've got João Pedro and Erling Haaland with Burnley away and Newcastle away. First off, more than happy to go against Haaland with St. James's Park. I always feel like at St. James's Park, it's always a fortress. I mean, it doesn't matter the form that Newcastle are on. If anything, they're going to be on more of a buzz that is a bigger team coming there. Now, again, maybe that's just my own mind thinking and making its own narratives, but it's how my mind works. So going into this game week, I will be expecting 150% effective ownership for Erling Haaland, so I will be hoping for him to blank again. I'm unsure if too many managers will still go against him with the form he's on. We've never seen form like this. When you include the international goals along with what he's doing for City, I believe the only game he would have actually properly blanked in was that game versus Tottenham, which is crazy to think of when you consider we're 11 game weeks in. Beside him, we've of course got João Pedro, which I do expect to start this game with Burnley away. Now, I think it's time to start talking about getting rid of João Pedro with, again, the fixture congestion that also comes in for Chelsea. And also, he's just kind of been not on it again. I know in the last 2 weeks I've been fortunate enough to get returns from him, but I just feel like, Pedro is a better player than what we've seen from him. Again, he's just not largely been in the game for me. So I do understand why a lot of managers sold him. I just felt with the fixtures that he had, whether or not he's been involved in the games or not, Burnley away and the fixtures he had before them were great on paper, and that's why I held on to him. And I do feel like I'm more than happy to hold on to him for this particular game week. So just to round up, 3 free transfers, 1.3 million in the bank. I could do Bruno Fernandes in one move and roll the other 2. Do I like that? I very much like that. What are the other alternatives? To save 1 million from Bruno and leave me with 1 million in the bank, 1+ million in the bank, and do Eze to Kuna. I also really like this. Don't get me wrong. It's just I'm unsure if I'm feeling that risk appetite when I've currently got a midfield of Salah captain, unsure if Enzo is going to play, and Anderson with Liverpool away, going against the obvious captain. So I'm unsure how I feel about taking on that much risk. I feel like with Sesko out, though, I do really like it. Alternatively, I could go Brian Mbeumo or Antoine Semenyo, which I currently have on the same bracket with the fixtures of West Ham at home and Sunderland away for Semenyo. And then lastly, the last thing I can do if I do go down the route of Semenyo would be to do Senesi in for Mukiele, which I don't love. One player I would love is Virgil van Dijk, but I just don't think in this current game week I could do it. Again, I do have 3 free transfers, but I do fancy my backline. Like, I would not do Juri and Timber to Virgil van Dijk, I don't think, even though they're missing Gabriel. Anyway, let's move on to my wildcard draft before I hold you guys for any longer. So lastly, lads, we have the wildcard draft, and this is what I would do if I was on wildcard 12. Now, just keep in mind where I am in my current team. It would be weird for me not to have players on my own team on wildcard, considering I have them. So it's hard for me to not to recommend them. So I do appreciate if you don't like this team, but I just want you to be thinking. That's all. And I think we're going to start to see a structure change in terms of what players we're targeting and teams also. But this is what I would do, and I have left 0.5 in the bank. If you do not appreciate some of the players, that gives you enough money to do Kuna up to Mbuemo, depending on your team value, of course. Maybe you don't like the likes of a Trafford and you just want a Senesi for the security, or you even don't like Mo Salah and you want to knock him down to Bukayo Saka. I can appreciate all these things, but I want to ask you these questions if I was on Wildcard, first off, or in general for your own team. Do you trust in the Arsenal assets minutes in terms of Timber, Eze, and Saka? So, what minutes do you see Saka getting over the next 5 when you consider their Champions League run, of course? What I would say is I do feel like Saka will probably get the minutes over anyone else in this Arsenal attack. Now, you do have Madueke coming back from injury, but how many minutes in those games is he getting? Is he getting 60 to 70? And if he is getting 60 to 70 when the games start to get tough and fast with the Champions League games and the Christmas period, is it enough and justify that 10 million? Secondly, with the likes of Ajuri and Timber and Ben White, again, looming around, I do expect him to miss the odd game. If he misses the odd game, again, presuming he gets subbed off, or he gets subbed on, so that's likely a 1-pointer if he doesn't start the game, is it justified at 6 million to go with the likes of Ajuri and Timber? I would say yes, probably still with how good Arsenal are. I'm not trying to scaremonger. I'm just trying to put it into perspective on if I was on wildcard right now, what are the things that I'd be thinking of to future-proof my team, considering you want to get players who are going to play 90 minutes through this period. And when you look at some of the players that I've gone with Yankuba Minta, Kuna, Sarr, Mateta, Haaland, Mo Salah. These are players who are going to get 90 minutes, you'd like to hope, through this period. And you won't have to book in transfers when you've already have the likes of a Salah and Sarr to get rid of in game week 16. So going and opting for Kuna over Mbuemo. So Kuna over Mbuemo, like I said, but you could also do Semenyo if you prefer Semenyo and you trust in him, which I think he's a very, very reasonable team, and it's probably what this team is missing. Uh, Other than that, I think it's a very, very solid team. Now, it is playing 4 at the back in most weeks, but I don't necessarily think that is an issue at all, especially if you do decide that you want to go from a Trafford to a Senesi. Going double Bournemouth defence with those fixtures, I'd be comfortable doing. And again, you'll have between now and game week 15 plenty of transfers to use, and in 16 you get the transfers to use on the likes of a Sarr and a Salah anyway to readjust the team. So why not take a bit of risk in this period? And maybe you do decide to go with a Brian Mbuemo, another player which you'd have to readjust. So transfers are there to be made, and between now and maybe 3 or 4 game weeks time, I think this team, I'd be very comfortable going into each game week. Again, you've the likes of Virgil van Dijk, Richards, Trafford and Timber, which provide good attacking threat and decent DEFCON numbers. And in midfield, you've just got something a bit different with Mo Salah. And I know a lot of people don't like it. And again, if I did not have Salah in this team, what I would do is I would knock him down to Saka and bring Marquis up to Ekitike. Again, that's just what I would do. Again, Ekitike mightn't be liked by many managers due to minutes, but with those fixtures and the form he's in, I just feel like he's going to play. So let me know in the comments section if you hate the draft, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who do, but I hope you can understand where I'm coming from. Also, if it is just too risky for you and you just prefer a Saka, I do feel like that is a good route to take, and I can understand it. But I'm always looking for the highest upside team in a specific period, especially if I'm on wildcard. I want as many points as possible. So do let me know in the comment section if you liked the video. Also, hit the like button and subscribe. And as usual, lads, I will see you for a deadline stream on Saturday. And as usual, I will see you in the next.